Okay, so I'm here with Johns Christian Stugar, who's the director of Pensions Denmark, which is the Danish pension scheme for blue-collar workers in the construction and transportation sector. Welcome.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so we're here at the Ceres and UN Investor Summit on climate risk. And after COP21, there's been more certainty that the world's moving to a low-carbon economy. As an investor, are there enough opportunities out there for you to invest in this area?
I think there is, but it's also a field that has become intensely crowded. What has happened with the COP21 deal was actually that we've seen a situation where the national governments have put forward plans for how they would like to move forward. And for us as an investor, that can basically be looked upon as an investment catalog. If the plans will be put into place, it's actually going to tell us where the investment opportunities are going to be going forward. And we can build on the experience that we already have from investing in wind farms, biomass power plants, and energy transmission.
And how do you approach carbon and fossil fuel risk in your portfolio?
As we do with the engagement, we do it very much on a case-by-case basis. If we look at sort of our overall portfolio at Pension Denmark, we now have invested in more than 2,000 megawatts of renewable energy. So we actually have as much renewable energy as our 700,000 members consume every year. So we can sort of say that we have renewable energy matching the power consumption of our members. So in that sense, it's something that we have a strong focus on. And then we take it down on a company-by-company basis, look at individual companies, what is their carbon risk, and how can we work with the company and with other investors to forward a situation where companies have a prudent plan for tackling the carbon risks that they're meeting in their portfolios.
So you're supportive of initiatives like the Aiming for A initiative? And
we voted with the Aiming for A at a couple of AGMs last year, and there's going to be a number of Aiming for A proposals going to AGMs this spring, which it looks like we're going to back, but we're going to look at the finer details when they're a part of sort of the AGM material that we receive at the time.
So have you been scrutinising the INDCs internally at Pension Denmark?
Not in detail, because for us as an investor, the most important thing is to see what's actually going to be put out there as specific investment opportunities. But the different catalogs gives actually an idea of what will come forward, where would this development go. But for us to undertake that as a detailed scrutiny, we need to be in a situation where we are at investable projects. So we need to be a couple of steps ahead.
Okay.
But up until that point, there's still a lot of investment opportunities out there that we're pursuing. Just in the past year, we've closed the deals on a biomass power plant in the UK. We've continued constructing an interconnector in Germany, and we're also looking into building a number of wind farms in different places in Europe. So there are investment opportunities out there, especially as a greenfield investor.
Okay, so you don't find barriers to investing in low carbon opportunities?
There's lots of barriers and lots of work to be done in this area, and that's also why that we as investors need a premium to do these type of investments, simply because there are a lot of more work from undertaking these type of non-listed investments as opposed to buying listed equity. We can buy a billion worth of listed equity in more or less in a split second, whereas if we need to invest that kind of money in unlisted projects, it takes a lot more work, it takes a lot more technical and legal due diligence. And that work, of course, we need to get some sort of premium for. So the opportunities are out there, but it's also a lot of hard work. No denial about that.
So there's not the policy support there for these premiums that you need, do you find?
There is a policy support in some countries and around certain projects. But what we think is that COP21 gave a very clear signal about the direction of this. But now it's up to individual governments to now put those plans into specific policies, and for investors to move into to reaping sort of the benefits of that. Because what we see is a lot of investors having interest in this field. If you take as an example brownfield wind farms in Europe, we've seen the expected returns of them coming down quite substantially in recent years,
Yeah.
which actually illustrate that it's not the sort of the lack of investor interest that is holding this back. It might be in certain cases lack of risk appetite in terms of greenfield projects, or lack of sort of the right projects that match the asset liability situation of an individual investor.
Okay, that's interesting. Okay, I'd like to talk about company and corporate disclosure around climate risk. What's your views on that with the companies that you invest in?
We take a very company by company approach, because in some sectors there's a very big need for companies to be very specific on the risk that they have in terms of carbon, in terms of climate. Other types of industries, they can be more focused, for instance, on health and safety, and in other sectors as well, there's going to be a whole third set of issues that's going to be important for that company's ability to be successful.
Yeah.
So we go on it at a very case-by-case basis, and we work with an external partner to take care of the sort of the dialogue with the companies, and also make sure that we proxy vote all our equities, so that we push the companies that are at a carbon risk in the right direction.
Okay, that's interesting. And you must have heard of the new task force on, the new disclosure task force on climate-related financial risk, which is going to be headed up by Michael Bloomberg. Lots of people I've spoken to are very excited about this new initiative. How do you feel?
Well, I think it's a very, very interesting crowd that they have gathered together. And as far as I understand the conversation, they're going to do sort of an as-is report that's going to come out in March, which we're going to look at with great interest, because it's sort of a point zero of what they can achieve going forward. So I think that it's a very interesting initiative, and it's also very interesting that Mark Carney has sort of set himself in front of this, and with Michael Bloomberg being a voice on this issue for a number of years. There's really some number of strong people involved in this that will be able to take this agenda forward.
Sure, yeah, it's very interesting. And maybe we could just briefly talk before we end about Pension Denmark's specific portfolio. You have, I think, just under 10% committed to renewables, and you've done this, I think, since 2014 or even earlier. You can explain when this started. So you've started this process quite early. I think a lot of investors are going to be looking at this as closely as you have been all those number of years ago now. Maybe you can talk about that process and why you started when you did.
Well, I think the realization was that bond yields were very low, so we needed to have investment that gave us a stability in the portfolio. So what happened was that we, back in 2009, made our first direct investment in an offshore wind farm. And since then, we've built our portfolio of renewable energy assets, from offshore wind farms to onshore wind farms to biomass power plants, even have some solar as well, and also have taken the step of going into transmission, an interconnector in Germany, for instance. So we've tried to build a portfolio of these type of infrastructure assets that are very energy related, with a strong focus on renewables. So the process we've been is actually looking into having a stable socket in our portfolio that is fairly uncorrelated with the business cycle, and then can give us sort of a counterweight to the very volatile equity markets. So that's basically been sort of the process that we've been through. And now we're sort of looking to maintain the about 10% exposure to infrastructure. And because we're a very young pension fund and have rapidly growing asset under management, we need to sort of continue doing deals every year to maintain that 10% level. And in that process, we have taken on sort of greenfield investments, for instance, within biomass power plants. But also recently, we've teamed up and created the Danish Climate Investment Fund that will undertake these type of renewable investments in emerging market as well, because that's a market that we're not able to invest directly in ourselves, but together with the Danish OPIC and the Danish government and other pension funds, we can do this in a way where we can actually also get an exposure to renewable infrastructure in emerging markets.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.